Rico McGee, another episode of the Rulers Minute, man. This is something I've been wanting to do for years, man. This is my guy right here. Somebody that I reached out to when I first graduated from college, trying to get in the business, man. Die-hard Browns fan. I be jokingly trying to convert him to be a Falcons fan, but he'd be like, nah, bro. I live in Atlanta, but it's still Browns all day, every day. Ladies and gentlemen, I got Scott Pennyman, man. How you feeling this evening?
I'm doing good. Glad to be here, man. Appreciate you and appreciate you. Nice to see you still out here doing your thing as well as you are, and I'm happy to be here on your show.
Thank you. Thank you, man, so much, man. We're going to get right on ahead to it, man. We've been
Yeah.
talking a lot about the Browns this week, man. The beating they took on Sunday, last Sunday versus Dallas, the new Deshaun Watson controversy, but all of that is behind us now. We got to get ready for week 2. What are your thoughts on the whole performance and how can the Browns improve on that, in your opinion?
Well, look, I mean, obviously, I was pretty hard on Deshaun Watson because I didn't think he played well, right? And basically, when you bring a quarterback in for the amount of money they gave him, for the amount of draft capital they gave up for him, you expect to see some franchise quarterback play, right? And so
Right.
obviously his first 2 years were affected just for his legal situation. Last year with injuries, he only started 12 games over a 2-year span. So this, I think as a fan, you kind of came into it, even fans, media, whoever, you kind of came into it thinking, okay, this is the year. It's year 3 now. This is when we're going to see Deshaun Watson. This is when we're going to see more of what they were looking for when they brought him in. And week 1, you didn't see that. He looked like he was very, he looked very indecisive in the pocket. He made some really bad throws. Now, the entire team played poorly. Offensive line didn't have their best game. They couldn't run the football worth anything. Defensively, they were out of position a lot of different times. They were beaten by the Cowboys pretty soundly, which obviously they're a really good football team. It's not a shame in losing to the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys are going to win 11 to 13 games this season. So, I mean, there's not a lot to be ashamed of there. But it was just disappointing, right? And I think as far as Watson, for me, the disappointing, and I want him to do well as much as anybody else. I know on social media I get to talking about him and people go, "Oh, you can't stand Deshaun Watson." That's not it. All I want to see is I want to see what you see from other franchise level quarterbacks. I want to see a guy who's able to still look good and still make things happen, even though everything isn't exactly perfect around him, right? Maybe the offensive line is struggling a little bit. Maybe the receivers are struggling. But as a franchise quarterback, your job, just like when you see guys like Josh Allen play every single week, when you see other franchise level quarterbacks, even Dak Prescott and Patrick Mahomes, what you want to see is a quarterback that can raise the level of the guys around him and can still have success and drag his team to victory, even though everything around him might not be ideal. And we've only seen that Deshaun Watson one time in the last 3 years, and that was in the game last year against Baltimore.
Right, exactly. Now, granted, me and a friend of mine was talking. Please, when you get a chance, check out the Stroud Brothers
For sure.
sports show. We were talking, and it seemed like he's, playing kind of, I don't want to say timid, but he's a little cautious, still coming off that major injury. How much of that injury is playing a role in his psyche, and maybe he's trying to avoid getting hurt?
Well, of course, look, I mean, I'll never know exactly how hurt he is. Only he knows his body. Maybe people with the team have a little bit, but I'll just have to take the word of everybody around him and say he's fine medically. He says he's fine. The people around him say he's fine. So he's fine. So, I mean, maybe psychologically, maybe it takes a little bit of a toll on him because maybe he doesn't feel the ability to really be who he is. I don't know. But look, if you're out there, you got to make it happen. If you're on the field, you part of being a franchise quarterback is that sometimes you're not going to always feel 100% or feel right, or you still have to perform. And I think that's, and look, he's not the only supposed to be elite level quarterback who didn't perform in week 1. I mean, Joe Burrow, guys like that have had his problems, and other quarterbacks haven't always performed great. But the pressure is on. I mean, just with everything he's got going on off the field and what he has going on the field, this is a big game for the Browns. Not necessarily from a standing standpoint, because losing the second game of the season isn't tragic, although it is a high percent. The numbers are out there. If you lose your first two games, the chances of you making the playoffs. I know that's talked a lot about, but I think just from Deshaun Watson and from his standpoint, I think he really needs a good effort this week, probably for his psyche and just kind of for where he's at mentally right now. Because if he comes out and plays like he did against the Cowboys, man, and they lose again, it's going to be a tough week next week for him.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Now another woman has come out and sued him, this time for sexual assault. They're saying that they have a video now all of a sudden. It just seems like, and I'm no conspiracy theorist or anything like that, but it seems like people are telling me that they're potentially trying to get they're regretting the Watson contract and they're trying to get out of it. Just from your perspective, not how much of that do you actually believe, and do you think it's just all fooey? You know what I'm saying?
Well, if you do believe in that sort of thing, I think you'll kind of maybe link it to what happened at Michigan State with Mel Tucker, right? So Mel Tucker,
Right.
he was hired at Michigan State. They gave him like a $95 million contract. I think about a year into that contract, they had some buyer's remorse. They were starting to feel like, maybe we pulled the trigger on that a little early. And because they kind of had a decline that next year. And I think they didn't like what they were seeing from Coach Tucker. And then all of a sudden, from nowhere, here's this sexual harassment suit that comes out from a woman who he supposedly was dealing with the school. And Michigan State goes, that's our chance to get out this contract now. And they're going, they let Coach Tucker go. And they're going through what they're going through now. So if you're a conspiracy theorist, I can see where you may feel that way, because this looks kind of similar to that, right? I mean, everything's kind of going quiet, and all of a sudden this suit jumps out here that's not really necessarily related to the other ones, because this is a woman who he was dating, I guess, not necessarily a massage therapist. So now they can go, if they want to, they can go, hey, we didn't know about this one. This was not like the other ones here. We didn't know about this. And so this, if they really felt that way. But honestly, I don't think they feel that way. I think Andrew Berry, and I think he knows that his time as a general manager of the Browns will be defined by what happens with this Deshaun Watson situation. If Deshaun Watson ends up being a total bust and you have to let him go, I think Andrew Berry's legacy is going to be defined by that. I think if Watson ends up taking off and being really good and leading them to the Super Bowl, then his legacy will be defined by that too. But I mean, hands down, this was the biggest thing that Andrew Berry has done since he was the general manager of the Browns, and it's not lost on Browns fans. The guy you got rid of seems to be living his best life right now down in Tampa. He seems to found his groove down there. He looks like one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL the last couple of years. So it's a lot. It's a lot of different factors. There's a lot of different dynamics here. So they just need him to. They need, first of all, they need those off the field things to whatever they have to do to get those to go away, because it just seems like a never ending story right now with that. Just they've been dealing with that for 2 years now. And then you need him to play better on the football field.
Definitely. I think if he plays good, I don't think you'll hear, too, like you said with the whole Mel Tucker situation. I don't think you're gonna hear too much about it as long as he continues to perform well. It seems like when teams, if you're a player and you're not performing, and then some type of scandal comes out, it's like, oh, okay, we're gonna use that and either light a fire up under your butt to play better, or we're just gonna flat out get rid of you. Or if you're good, they'll probably they'll pretty much ignore it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, with the whole Jack Gordon thing, the constant weed smoke in it, but he was one of the best receivers in the league at that time. And I agree with what you're saying there. Switching gears, last night, Buffalo and Miami played. Tua got another concussion.
Yeah,
I believe this is his third or fourth one in a few years.
he's had several.
Yeah. And I told people a couple of years ago that he might want to reevaluate some things, and people began looking at me like I was crazy. And I'm like,
Yeah,
no, dude, I watched him get 2 concussions in the same season,
yeah.
or yeah, to that extent. What are your thoughts on the whole Tua situation? And how do you bounce back from that if you don't plan on retiring?
Well, I think, like it or not, I think the biggest factor here is going to be. Well, I'm not going to say. Yeah, the biggest factor I think is that he's still owed about $124 million guaranteed, right? I mean,
Right,
so I think that's going to play a factor in him maybe wanting to get back, right? I mean, that's $124 million left on the table to secure your family's legacy for a long time.
right,
So sometimes money, with all of us, money oftentimes gets in the way of our better judgment. So I think that's going to play a role in what happens with Tua. Maybe if they can cut some sort of a settlement with him that he's happy with on the financial side where he can walk away, then maybe that changes things. But right now he was been paid, I think, 43 million guaranteed. He's been paid 43, and they're still on the hook for at least $124 million guaranteed. And that doesn't, I don't think that includes like, his season, his regular game checks. So he's due a lot of money if he keeps playing football, probably somewhere in probably over $200 million, right? So it's just really interesting to see. Look, that's going to play a role. Um, in a perfect world, he probably should walk away, right? I mean, he's
right.
suffered like 5 or 6 concussions, and last night's hit, as far as NFL hits go, as far as big time NFL concussion hits, that was a relative that didn't look like that bad of a hit, and he got a concussion basically by knocking his head into Damar Hamlin's rib cage. So, I think if he's doing the smart thing, maybe he would walk away. But and that's easy for us to say. That's easy for
Right.
us to say here, who are just in the media or those of us who just watch the sport. But we're not the ones who are giving up $124 million guaranteed. So I think he'll think about it. I think he'll exhaust every option to continue playing. In my heart of hearts, I think he will continue playing. Maybe it won't be anytime early this season. Maybe it'll be next year, or maybe it'll be later this season. I don't think it'll be anytime soon. But for the young man that he is, and for the money that his career still has left to earn, I just don't think he's going to walk away. I don't.
I don't think he's going to walk away either. One last question
Mhm.
before we head up out of here. Cleveland heading to Jacksonville to play the Jaguars. What is your final prediction? I mean, who wins that game and why?
You know what? I'm gonna go Browns. I think the defense will play a lot better than they played in the opener against the Cowboys, because they are a good defense and they are led by a good defensive coordinator in Jim Schwartz. I think he'll work to figure things out for the Jaguars. And the Jaguars have been pretty shaky really since mid last year too, right? I mean, they finished the season really bad. They lost their opener too, so Trevor Lawrence, he's an up and down quarterback, right? I mean, sometimes he looks really good, like he should. He's one of the more hot and cold quarterbacks, because sometimes he looks like he has all the tools to be a franchise guy that can lead them where they want to go in the next 10 to 12 years, and sometimes he just looks okay, right? So I think the Browns defense can affect him, so I think they'll play a lot better. And I think Deshaun Watson will play a lot better, because I think the talent is in him, and I think he knows he's got to be really good this week in order to give his team a chance to win. And if you have any real pride, right? If Watson has any real pride, he understands what has taken place the last few weeks. He understands what's been said about him. These players nowadays, they're on social media on a regular basis. They see what's being said about them. They hear what's being said about them. And I think Deshaun Watson, being the competitor that he is, he's fighting for his NFL life right now, because if this doesn't turn out to be well, if this stay in Cleveland doesn't finish well, there'll be no more other huge contracts. So right now he's fighting for his NFL life and for his career. And normally, what dogs do when they're backed into a corner, dogs come out fighting. And I think Deshaun Watson, for most of his career, has been one of those dogs. And so I think he'll come out fighting this week. I think he'll play a lot better. And I think he'll play good enough for the Browns to get a win in Jacksonville on Sunday.
All right. You heard it first here. Scott Pennyman. I also am going to go with the Browns. I'm going to go with a score 27-20. I think Cleveland's defense is going to play a lot better than what they played last week. I think Jim Schwartz, who's probably one of the best defensive coordinators in the league, he's like you said, I think he's going to definitely figure some things out. And I don't think Watson is going to play that bad the rest of the season anyway. So I'm definitely going with the Browns.
Yeah, I think I'll pick it up. Now, I'm surprised on the way out you ain't want to talk about your Falcons.
You know what? I'm gonna be honest with you. Atlanta, they got some things to figure out. They lost to a pretty listen. TJ Watt is one of the best defensive players in the league.
For sure.
They came out ready to play. Atlanta just looked unprepared offensively. Defensively, Atlanta didn't play bad. They didn't play horrible.
They played good.
Yeah, they were able to keep Pittsburgh out of the end zone.
Yeah.
Offensively, they just got to figure some things out. I think, Kirk Cousins, I don't expect him to, come out 400 yards and 5 touchdown passes first game back from a major injury. I didn't expect that, but I expected that offensive line to play a lot better than they did. And it seems like they just had no answer for TJ Watt or really Cameron Hayward for that opinion. What's your opinion?
Well, look, I've covered that team last 2 years, right? I mean, I've had a chance to be around Coach Raheem Morris a lot. I like Coach Morris a lot. He's a really good, solid dude. Yeah, I mean, I think what's kind of fascinating is obviously you have the situation where you took a quarterback in the first round and he said back there, Michael Penix. It makes you wonder how long they'll wait if Cousins continues to struggle. How long would it be before they would pull the plug on Kirk Cousins? I don't know. I think he'll get a lot of time. But, yeah, I mean, it just seems kind of – I know fans around here have been really frustrated the last 2 years because here you have all these weapons that you took around the quarterback, right? You got Kyle Pitts, who – I'm not going to say he hasn't lived up to being what he's supposed to be because the quarterback situation has been really crazy right now. And his best year with the Falcons came when they had some semblance of quarterback play when Matt Ryan was here in his last year with the Falcons. That was the best season that Kyle Pitts has had. He's been kind of slowed down last couple of years. He had the injury, and then last year just didn't. We haven't seen that game-changing tight end that he was drafted to be. But I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt because of the quarterback situation hasn't been what it needs to be either. Same with Drake London. You took him in the first round, and then Bijan Robinson. But we have yet to see this offense with the Falcons look like you would think it should look with those when you have 3 first-round picks around the quarterback, and you had what was one of the more solid offensive lines as a whole last season, with some of those guys. So I just think fans around here have been frustrated because they want to see that offense perform at an optimum level with all those weapons around the quarterback, and they just haven't seen it. So I think it's really frustrating to a lot of fans around here. But it doesn't get any easier this week, right? They got the Eagles on Monday night, right? So I mean, that's a tough game to be able to rebound losing your first game and have to play the Eagles, who I think is going to be one of the top 2 or 3 Super Bowl contenders this year. So. They definitely need Cousins to get right. They definitely need Cousins to get right in order for this offense to really be what it's supposed to be, right? I mean, we're supposed to be watching Drake London get 7 catches for 120 yards and a touchdown. We're supposed to be seeing Kyle Pitts get 8 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown. We're supposed to see Bijan Robinson get 20 to 25 touches, and this offense should be rolling, and it's just never looked like that in the last couple of years. Kirk Cousins was supposed to be the answer to make it look like that, and I think people are just frustrated. What they saw in week 1 was just frustration. They're like, but you have to understand he's coming off an Achilles injury, and you have a first-time offensive coordinator in Zach Robinson. So, I mean, it may take some time for it to come together.
Yeah, I mean, when I looked at the schedule, as soon as I saw the schedule, I'm like Pittsburgh, Philly, and Kansas City.
That's tough. That's a tough first 3 games. That's hard. That's hard. Yeah.
Right. And then you got New Orleans, who always give us hell, whether they good or whether they suck. They always find a way to give us hell. And then Tampa Bay, who I believe is still the leader of the pack in that division.
The one division.
Everybody ready to crown Atlanta. I'm like, no, you still got Tampa Bay because Baker Mayfield had one of his best seasons in a long time last season. So
and he looked really good in week 1 too, threw 4 touchdown passes. Yeah.
So, I mean, granted, it was the Commanders, but still, like
it's the NFL, man. It's the NFL. If you can look in the NFL, like they used to say, there is no. It's not like you're playing Coastal Carolina one week, or it's not like that you're playing West Texas A&M. In the NFL, they all count the same, and any team
Mhm.
can beat you on any given Sunday if you're not prepared. So any win that you get on any Sunday in the NFL is you better just be thankful for it.
Right, right,
Yep.
exactly. So we'll see what happens. Week 2, I don't see us. I don't have us beating Philadelphia in Philadelphia, and it's a Monday night game. It's like, nah, bro.
Well, Kirk Cousins doesn't necessarily, his track record for these primetime games hasn't been very good. So,
Yeah,
but it's a great time to break it. So
yeah.
if he's gonna make it happen, this would be a great time to make it happen.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, thank you so much, man, for
For
joining the
sure.
show, man. Ladies and gentlemen, to Scott Pennyman, man. You
Thank
could give
you.
them your Twitter and where they could find you at.
Hey, so you can find me anytime on Facebook if you want some smoke. It's Scott Pennyman. You'll find me as a Atlanta sports reporter. And then if you want me on Instagram, if you want some smoke there, it's at Professor Pennyman. I'm
All
always ready
right.
for some smoke. So, and
Yeah,
I interact with people, right? I mean, people will look at, a lot of people who are on TV and stuff or who've been on TV, they don't like to interact with people because I will interact with you. We could talk all day long, and if you come at me with some smoke, I'm gonna come right back at you. Let's do it.
let's get it. Let's get it.
Yep,
And me as well, man, here at the Rulers Minute. We
for sure,
interact too, and we will argue back with you.
for
Don't ever
sure.
forget that. Well,
Yep, yep.
ladies and gentlemen, I'm Rico McGee. This is Scott Pennyman. This has been the Rulers Minute. And as always, we'll see you in a minute.